Sao Paulo is a big city. On a good day, it'll take you just under an hour to drive the 20 kilometres from the Pro Martyr Maternity Hospital to the bustling district of Santana, past opulent residential blocks and favelas alike, to the patch of land between two lakes where the Autodromo Jose Carlos Passe now sits, in an area fittingly known as Interlagos. But it was a journey that took one of Brazil's greatest sons 31 years and 3 days to truly complete. With only 6th gear left and utterly exhausted, Ayrton Senna da Silva crossed the line first at Interlagos to finally claim the one thing that had always eluded him: victory in his home Grand Prix. It's just one chapter in the remarkable history of a race that rarely disappoints, and so often delivers the unbelievable. Local heroes rising, weather that can turn in an instant, overtakes that defy physics, chaos, carnage and comebacks that belong in myth. The Sao Paulo Grand Prix is beloved and cherished for a reason. Here, destiny can shift in the space of 38 seconds. Flags wave, the rain falls, and entire lives change direction. Joy becomes heartbreak, hope becomes headbutts, and somehow, dignity and class still find their way through it all. Because as much as the drivers love it, Interlagos doesn't love back easily. You have to earn it. And sometimes, as quickly as the weather turns, even that isn't enough. It's incomparable, it's Interlagos, it's a Sao Paulo Grand Prix, and this is the Sporting Almanac podcast.
Is that Glock? Is that Glock going slowly?
Half Yours wins the Melbourne Cup, ridden by Jamie Mellon, predicted by AI.
I'm sorry, predicted by AI?
Yeah,
Can you explain that to me?
Predicted by AI, apparently. There was someone modelled the race and got it right with AI, so that's a bit weird.
Are we entirely sure that 40,000 people didn't model the race and this was the one person that happened to get it perfectly right?
I'm sure there have been many outcomes modelled by AI.
All that matters is it's a great story.
Yes.
Second female jockey to win it.
Yes.
You love to see it.
It is.
Congratulations to everyone. I hope all Victorians had a good day off as well.
Yeah. And in other news, Game 7 goes the way of the Dodgers.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't mind in it. I mean, yes, okay, I probably would have rather Toronto had won. But, I mean, what a series.
Yeah,
Sport was the winner.
Sport was the winner. And I agree. I wanted the Blue Jays to win, but it's very hard to deny that the Dodgers are an elite outfit with some very cool guys playing for them who made the difference in the end.
Indeed.
And Chelmsford City march on in the FA Cup.
Most importantly, I did wonder how long it would be till that was mentioned.
Let's go, boys. In the second round, Weston-super-Mare at home for a shot at the big boys.
Can you imagine? Away at Arsenal.
Yeah. First time we've made it to the second round in 15 years. For those of you who don't understand the importance of the FA Cup, go back to our episode on the FA Cup.
Episode 7.
Yes.
So if they did draw Arsenal away in the third round, which end are you in?
Oh, good question. Well, we're going for the quad, aren't we? So probably the Arsenal.
Ooh. You're basically a Dodgers fan right now. I hate to see it.
I know. That would be the dream tie, though, because everyone's a winner, really, for me at least. Anyhow, the Formula One season
has been pretty good. It's been all right, hasn't it?
It has been pretty good. Do you want to set the scene with the current standing?
There's not much in it. In fact, there's a single point in it.
Uno point, indeed. Yeah, Lando
Norris
leading the way.
Yeah.
357.
Nice.
Points to his name. 6 victories already accumulated. Doesn't have the most wins. That's Oscar Piastri.
Oscar, yeah.
356, 7 wins. 1 point behind, as you say. And then lurking with intent, as he always is, Max Verstappen. 321, 5 wins, 36 points back from Norris, 35 obviously therefore behind Oscar. 4 races to go. Las Vegas, Qatar, Abu Dhabi, and the subject matter of today's episode.
Indeed. Yeah, the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, as it's now known, formerly the Brazilian Grand Prix. The most important thing for me to say, and this is completely my opinion, whether or not you share it, I don't care, this is the last good race of the Formula One season. in my humble opinion.
It is. I agree with that.
It should be last. Qatar's okay.
Is not always a dud, but is generally a dud. The other two are useless.
Qatar's probably second to Bahrain in the Middle Eastern Grand Prix, but that's it's a low bar because some of them are awful. Abu Dhabi is not a good place to finish the season. Sao Paulo, as we will discuss at length today, can be an excellent place to start the season. To finish the season. I mean, the best place.
Abu Dhabi is such a bad place to end the season that you literally have to fix races in order to ensure an exciting outcome.
Just saying you stall out nice and early there.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to accuse us of British bias here.
Yeah.
Rather than just being able to read a rule book. But anyway.
Yeah. But maybe
more on that later.
Yeah, that's a whinge for another day. The Brazilian Grand Prix. I'm sure there would have been people as well who would have seen the title of this episode and thought, these bloody idiots haven't even done the most basic of research. They haven't got the name right. But as you quite rightly say, we think it's more affectionately known as the Brazilian Grand Prix, despite its official name.
Yeah. This is also a sports history podcast, and we're talking about the history of the Brazilian Grand Prix, which includes a number of years it was in Rio de Janeiro as well.
Yes.
And many, many years when it was simply called the Brazilian Grand Prix. It's only a recent thing that's called Sao Paulo. And, this is more catch-all. If you say Brazilian Grand Prix, everyone knows what you're talking about. So, don't play dumb with us. You knew what we were saying.
Yeah. And if you want to be pernickety, then, well, that's your want, and you can be. But it won't get you very far on the almanac.
No.
We are going to consistently refer to it as the Brazilian Grand Prix. So get over it early. Where do we start with it? I mean,
racing in Brazil generally. Racing in South America generally. It's
oh yes, Fangio.
It's a big deal.
Fangio.
Yeah. Well, it is. It begins and ends with Fangio in terms of the vast popularity. Formula One in Argentina started earlier. There was Formula One races in Argentina right back to the beginning, and a large part of that, of course, was because of the popularity of Fangio. Now, why was Fangio so popular? And why did Fangio's popularity spread, obviously not just to Europe, but also to the other South American countries, and spread the joy that is motorsport to them?
Mercedes-Benz.
Because he was very popular in Brazil as well. Well, yes, many reasons, but...
I also, it's like, am I allowed to say this? Isn't it a bit weird that he was driving for a German manufacturing company immediately after a particular conflict?
The question of why there's so many people supporting Mercedes-Benz in Argentina is a fair question.
Yes.
But that's definitely a question for another day.
Another day.
So, South American motorsport in its early days, and this is talking mid-20th century, so 1940s particularly, that this really took off. It was born on open roads. It was vast, perilous stretches of desert and mountains where basically you had to have balls of steel and size. It's amazing they fit them in the car because
it was dangerous.
Yeah, absolutely. The sort of Latin thing about machismo and fearlessness, self-belief, that sort of attitude, the manliness, the expectations of a man, basically, which comes to the forefront here. It's not just the drivers as well. The spectators used to stand, as you can imagine, ridiculously close beside the tracks. There were fatalities. There were, use your imagination there.
Well, we talked about that in respect of Le Mans, didn't we? And a particular accident at that circuit where literally if a car crashed, it was in the crowd. That's what we're talking about.
Rally races, even, I think less so nowadays, but we're in the time that we've been watching motorsport. Crowds right by the side of the track is incredibly dangerous, but talented drivers, you just got to trust them. But there's one South American race particularly that encapsulated that sort of attitude. It's one of the maddest races I've ever heard of, called the Gran Premio del Norte, which was a 6,000-mile race from Buenos Aires across the Andes to Lima and back again.
Get to Lima and do a Yui.
God, that must be, if you get halfway across and think, oh, now I have to go back again. It reminds me more of the Tour de France than anything else. Like, it's been deliberately designed to be impossible. Like, to only allow the fearless and the big of balls to complete it. It was 15 stages in 15 days. The winner of the 1940 edition described it as being a terrible ordeal. To win it, to win it, he had to drive through boiling deserts, insect-infested jungles, freezing mountain passes with 1,000-foot drops ready for any errors. At very high altitude, you're talking 14,000 feet. I've been at 14,000 feet and I could barely walk up a hill, let alone drive a car. And obviously your car's reliant on that oxygen as well to work properly. So
yeah, the engine starts going. Yeah.
And on some roads, as you can imagine, that barely deserve the term roads. And all those roads are open to the public as well, just to add another threat in. And this driver in particular did crash with one of those one of the members of the public. But him and his co-driver made it to the end, and it helped forge his legend, because that man, of course, was Juan Manuel Fangio, the future 5-time Formula One world champion, aged 29, I think, in 1940. So he became, essentially on the back of this and other races of a similar type, very much road-based races, he became the sort of first true god of motorsport, not just in South America, I mean really worldwide. His influence, it ignored any Argentine-Brazilian rivalry, it inspired races in Brazil too. I think his story in the whole is for another day, but I'll mention a couple of things because they are relevant to this. Well, no, one's relevant to this and one's just funny. Firstly, he became very good friends in the 1980s with a very famous Brazilian driver you may have heard of, called Ayrton Senna.
I think I've heard of him.
Yeah. I'll go into him in a bit more detail later.
Yeah,
but
it'd be nice to learn a bit more about him.
He's quite famous. So Fangio, he admired Senna's ability and knowledge, and Senna obviously admired Fangio's wisdom and sought advice from him whenever he could. Senna used to travel to Argentina to meet his friend. Funnily enough, one trip allegedly potentially saved his life, because Ayrton Senna was being targeted by a narco gang who planned to kidnap him in Brazil. But Senna chose that particular week to visit Argentina and visit Fangio. And they were trying to kidnap him and ransom him, and who knows what could have happened there. Anyway, when Senna did die, Fangio attended his funeral, and he was quoted as saying, "I have lost my heir and successor."
That's nice.
Yeah, they meant a great deal to one another. So the second story comes, I think, around that same time, just before. So Fangio died in 1995, so not too soon after Senna.
Yeah.
And about a year before his death, so it'll be a similar time. He was now an octogenarian. He fell foul of a Buenos Aires law which prevented drivers over the age of 80 from renewing their driver's license. He got denied a license, and as a result of that, he challenged all the travel bureau officials to a race from Buenos Aires to the coast. If he won, he'd get his license. If they won, he'd give his license back. They just gave him his license instead. They didn't take him on. So they made an exception for him and gave him his license, which I think is probably fair enough.
Every good rule has an exception, and if you're going to make an exception, make it an exception for a 5-time world champ. Yeah.
I think he can drive a car, put it that way.
Yeah.
So obviously these races were, romantic and horrific in equal measure. For South Americans, it was intoxicating. These sort of ordinary men who became heroes through sort of will and fearlessness. It just spoke to a sort of an ideal that meant a lot to them. Brazil's love of racing actually came out even earlier than that. They staged their first official race in 1908, but it was Rio de Janeiro's the Circuito de Gavia that brought Brazil sort of truly to the national stage, because the first Grand Prix of Rio de Janeiro was held there, beginning in 1933. It was 11 kilometres of asphalt, cobbles, concrete and sand around the Pedra de Gavia, more than 100 corners and climbs so steep the drivers nicknamed it the Trampolim do Diabo, which is the Devil's Springboard, which is an excellent name.
That is a good nickname, yeah. I like that.
It had tram tracks going across it, just to add a bit of fun, and then sheer cliffs that dropped off into the sea. So, madness, sport, equal measure, Brazil. There you go.
Yeah, they do go hand in hand. It's quite a passionate nation.
Yeah. Fangio actually raced there. He raced there in the 1952 event. Obviously, these are all non-championship Grand Prix. Most of them, these are before the Formula One Championship. The ones that came later on in 1952 were non-championship events. But he raced in one of them. He didn't win. He was a DNF. A man named Chico Landi came second in that. And Chico Landi is worth a mention because he was Brazil's first great racing hero. He was from Sao Paulo. He wasn't from a rich family. He was from a working middle-class family. I think his father was a mechanic. So very modest background, especially compared to drivers that came after him, including Ayrton Senna, who were more often than not from richer backgrounds.
Still the case. Still the case.
Oh, it will be forevermore, unless you've got supreme talent.
Mm.
Even those who are middle class are middle class. They're not. It's not something you can realistically afford to do without a lot of luck.
That's probably Lewis Hamilton's background,
expensive.
And his dad still had 2 jobs to fund.
Yeah, exactly.
To fund it. So
Yeah, Anthony Hamilton worked very, very hard, but obviously he was in work and he was able to dedicate a lot of time and resources to Lewis, and that is what you need as a bare minimum.
Yeah, it's the minimum. Yeah.
Which is crazy when you think of the boy's talent. Like, thank God for Anthony Hamilton.
For sure.
Yeah. So anyway, Chico Landi, he left school at 11 to become a mechanic, and he started taking part in illegal nighttime street racing where he often had to try and escape the police, which is fun.
Very, very good.
Yeah, you love that, don't you? So Landi not only survived at the dangerous Gavia circuit, but he thrived, won multiple races, won a few Rio de Janeiro Grand Prix as well. But it was a point of pride, obviously, for Brazil's working class. It's a very divided country. He wasn't an aristocrat. It brought the sport to the common people and really, really made it popular. He was also the first Brazilian to drive in Formula One. He drove in 1951 at Monza, and he was also in 1956 the first Brazilian to score points in Formula One while driving a Maserati. He scored 1.5 points because he shared the drive with another driver. They got 3 points between them. He got 1.5 of them. Such were the rules in the day. Yeah, he got Brazil on the board, and Brazil is a country now that's produced more wins than any other country except for the UK and Germany, and obviously 3 world champions as well from Brazil.
Some real greats in there as well.
Yeah.
Not just like one-time world champs. We're talking some of the best to ever do it.
Yeah, Fittipaldi, Piquet and Senna. 2, 3, 3 championships, so 8 championships between the 3 drivers, and one driver in Massa who came within 38 seconds of winning a world title as well.
Which we'll come to.
We'll come to. So 1952 was the last Grand Prix at Gavia. The torch was to be passed on to a new city, to Sao Paulo, which is the booming industrial heart of the nation. Not quite as pretty a city as Rio, not quite as happening a city, but it is big a city, vast city with vast wealth, but not necessarily concentrated in everyone's hands, very much concentrated in a few hands. It's a very divided city. So civic planners in Sao Paulo had built a racetrack on marshy land between 2 reservoirs, known as Interlagos, which means between 2 lakes.
Yeah, that's the literal translation in Portuguese, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's named after the neighbourhood that it's built in.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
Yes, which is between 2 lakes.
Mm-hmm.
So it was opened in 1940. It was part circuit, part social experiment, a place where Brazil's working class and its elite could share the same terraces. It was dusty, raw and bumpy. So by the end of the 1960s and 70s, Brazilians had begun migrating to Europe in full scale. Obviously, most famously, Emerson Fittipaldi, 1972 and 1974, Formula One world champion. Also, Jose Carlos Passe, whose name you might have already heard in the intro, and I'll come to him in a second. Nelson Piquet, of course, Ayrton Senna as well, all following Fangio's trail to Europe. So Interlagos stood waiting, and it got its first chance in 1972, albeit at a non-championship Formula One event, because the rules in those days said that to host a championship Formula One event, you have to run it as a non-championship event first. So 1972 was basically their dress rehearsal and ready to start up in 1973 if it was successful. And it was successful. Emerson Fittipaldi took pole in 1972, but his suspension failed 5 laps before the end, and an Argentine of all people, of all countries, won it. It was Carlos Reutemann who won it. It was a non-championship race, and fortunately, to make up for that, in 1973, when the race was held as Formula One race proper, the then world champion
Fittipaldi,
Emerson Fittipaldi, was on hand to take the first win.
Yeah, he was.
He was second on the grid and won in 73, and followed it up as well in 74 with a second win.
And it was pissing it down in 74, I think.
Was it? Well,
it's a different kind of win.
Set a tradition.
Yeah. Well, it's for sure. Like, famed for its inclement weather or its ever-changing weather.
Yeah, particularly since it moved to the end of the season, particularly since it moved to November. Very changeable weather conditions as opposed to the heat that tends to happen in March, April time where it used to be run.
But who won in 1975, Jack? And what's the relevance of that?
It's an immensely relevant. I like this story.
It's very
even though it's got a sad ending.
Yeah, it has got a sad ending.
As a lot of stories, unfortunately, in Formula One at this era do. So it was a hat-trick for Brazil. 1975, the first 3 official Formula One World Championship Brazilian Grand Prix were all won by Brazilians. But the third one was not won by Fittipaldi. It was won by Jose Carlos Passe. Driving for Brabham Ford, he started 6th on the grid. Frenchman Jean-Pierre Jarier was on pole in a shadow and looking dominant. Passe started well. He moved up to 3rd behind Jarier and Reutemann before the Argentine had tyre trouble, which left Passe hunting down just Jarier, looking for the victory. It looked like he'd run out of laps, but the Frenchman's engine kindly gave up the ghost with a few laps to go. Back in these days where reliability was not so consistent as it is today.
Yeah.
It allowed Passe to pass, cruise the last 5 laps to the flag, ahead of Fittipaldi for a Brazilian 1-2. Very proud day in Brazil's history and one that was very, very well remembered. Yeah. It was Passe's first and only Formula One win. It was also Graham Hill's last Formula One start, funnily enough. And it's sort of appropriate to mention Graham Hill because unfortunately both Hill and Passe would come to the same fate. In 1975, Graham Hill died in a plane crash, and unfortunately in March 1977, Passe became the second Formula One driver in the matter of 2 weeks to lose his life.
Yes.
After Welshman Tom Price.
Which is a diabolical accident.
Don't Google it.
Yeah, don't encourage people to watch it. But to give people the context, he hits a marshal, a chap called Frederick Jansen Van Vuren.
Yes, teenager.
As he's running across the track holding a fire extinguisher in an attempt to attend to a car that's pulled over and is on fire. And there is a blind dip in a straight that Tom Price comes over, so the marshal can't see him coming, and Tom Price can't see the marshal in the road. He's going 100 mile an hour, if not faster, and he crashes into the marshal, and the fire extinguisher hits Tom Price in the head. The marshal is obviously instantly killed, and so is Tom Price. Yeah, and that was it was a fortnight, wasn't it, at the South African Grand Prix just before the plane crash?
Yeah, Tom Price was an excellent driver. He'd only been around for a couple of seasons. He was a young driver by standards of the day. I think he was 27, something like that. He had already won a non-championship Formula One race and was sort of setting himself up for a good drive in the future. And it's one of those what could have been moments, because it's incredible that, as we've mentioned before in our previous Formula One episodes, that was the safety standards of the day, that it was deemed okay for marshals without high visibility outerwear to wander across the track while near a blind crest, carrying heavy fire extinguishers.
The thing that's also
incredible,
just genuinely, I know we're going off on a slight tangent here, but the thing that's really interesting about that is that the safety measures were so lax that it was deemed, and the cars were so dangerous and flammable that was deemed the lesser of two evils. It was essential that marshals attend to burning wreckages by any means.
The alternative.
Yeah, and what that meant is that they would do risky stuff in order to get there, because obviously
otherwise you end up with Roger Williamson at was it Zandvoort, or certainly in the Netherlands?
Yes.
Along with this incident, probably the other worst.
Guy won the George Cross, for saving him, or trying to save him. Rather.
Yeah, terrible incident. But they're probably those two. Formula One's had a lot of bad incidents, but those two stand out. Tom Price and Roger Williamson. It was a very dangerous time, is what we're saying. And this is us going off topic, but it was dangerous.
Let's get back on topic.
Yes.
32 when he died in 1977, but 8 years later.
Yeah, in 1985, in his honour, the Interlagos circuit was renamed the Autodromo José Carlos Passe, and it also now serves... did you see this? It serves as his resting place now.
Yes, I did see that. That is a very nice little... Not for the reasons why he was moved. His grave was vandalised, wasn't it, by someone?
No, that's not very bad, but... it's an appropriate end. And did you see the story about his son and what he did before he was interred?
Yeah, he drove him around the track, didn't he?
Yeah, it took his urn, put him in the passenger seat, gave him one last lap of the track at full speed before burying him near where his statue is at the stadium. Yeah, which is, you know what, good way to go.
And he's the only driver to be buried at a racetrack, apparently.
Crazy.
Which is, not a bad legacy if you are going to have a tragic demise. He's also just a pretty interesting guy. He came second in the 1973 Le Mans.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I think he did.
That's cool.
And he drove for a couple of legendary teams. He drove for Williams, Surtees, and Brabham. And as you've already said, Brabham is who he won the Brazilian Grand Prix with. And he also drove for Hexagon, who are less well known.
Yeah,
but paying homage.
Yeah, well, I have a soft spot for anyone who's ever driven for Williams. You may be aware, so fair play.
Yeah, and if he, Brazilian drivers, he's not Ayrton Senna is famously the one who reached an early tragic demise as well. So they're not unfamiliar with these sorts of unfortunate dynamics and events. But had it not been named after him, I'm sure it would have been named after Senna.
Well, there is a karting track.
Yes, there is
at the circuit. Yeah, named after Ayrton Senna.
Yeah,
but Ayrton Senna's legacy is pretty huge anyway, so I'm sure. I think this one is very much appropriate. But yeah, you are probably right there.
Yeah. So sorry. Is it worth mentioning after 1975, which led us on to explaining why Interlagos' name changed, Fittipaldi won again. 1976.
He did, yeah.
Brazilian dominance continued at home.
You love to see it.
And then
Fittipaldi is great, a legendary driver, of course. All you have to say there.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, people, not everybody that listens to us would probably be au fait with 1970s Formula One. So, maybe it's
a very difficult time to stay alive, let alone to win a championship, let alone to win 2 championships. So, doff your cap.
Yeah. And even though Brazilian dominance would be ended in 77, South American dominance would continue because the chap who won the inaugural event in 70, was it 71 you said? 72.
Reutemann, yeah.
Yeah, Reutemann, the Argentinian. He won. And I think that was the race at which the complaints about the surface really started to ramp up.
Yeah. So it was less that the complaints about the surface weren't happening. It was more that as the decade went on and Jackie Stewart's influence for the right thing to do, because Stewart had seen so many friends die in his career. Big advocate of safety, wasn't he? Ending with Francois Sever in his last ever race, seeing his teammate cut in half in his last race. It was a horrendous and dangerous sport. He became a big safety advocate, and one of the things he tried to cut back on was these dangerous old-fashioned circuits that needed modernisation. Interlagos was one of those, and it was one of those because it wasn't keeping up with modern cars. Essentially, I mean, it was dangerous to begin with, but also the way cars were developing with ground effect. Yes, basically the airflow of the car under the car is you end up with a lot of bouncing, which you've seen recently. Cars in the new design, which has been 4 or 5 years now, have more ground effect. You see the bouncing, you see the sparks coming off behind them.
When it first came out,
a bumpy surface
in the regulation change, it was really aggressive, wasn't it? And you could even see like the Mercedes in particular was literally like hopping down like the straights. It's that is what we're talking about, but that on a rough track, which was got high attrition rate on tires, was bumpy. It's like then that effect, and obviously like you were already saying, pretty long walls, crowd close by. You're getting into the territory of like there's going to be a major accident,
and you're losing a lot of the downforce your car would ordinarily have, or at least a lot of the consistency. So the cars become twitchy as well, so it's not a pleasant place to race. So anyway, the result of that was in 1978, for 1 year only, they moved to a circuit in Rio de Janeiro called, and wish me luck, Ben.
Good luck.
Jacarapagua.
Good effort.
I wish I just said it once, because I can't say it again. Obviously in the more glamorous Rio de Janeiro. It was moved back to Sao Paulo the next year. It was meant to alternate from there,
yes,
but there were issues with the circuit in Rio, so it was 2 years then in Interlagos before it permanently went to Rio de Janeiro for pretty much the entire 1980s.
Yes,
until 1989. In fact, was the last year it was there. So it was most notable there for the success of one Alain Prost, who became known as the King of Rio, because he won there 4 times.
Yeah, he holds the record for the most Brazilian wins.
Brilliant driver.
Generally, I think he's got 6.
Nice. More than Lewis.
I want to say that's right. Most wins ever. Yes, Alain Prost was 6, but 5 in Rio, I think.
Yeah. And then if he won 91, did he? No, because that was Senna. 190, I think.
Yeah,
the first one back in Interlagos.
First one back, yeah.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, that was Senna. Yeah, it remained in Rio, obviously, for the rest of the 80s. It was a very physically demanding race. It was better than Interlagos, but it was still quite old-fashioned, relatively speaking. And it was held at the start of the season in hot, humid conditions. Driver retirements due to exhaustion wasn't uncommon, which is mad.
That is crazy. I mean, to be fair, even in the modern day, they lose a lot of weight through sweat and stuff.
We've just had a hot race declared for the first time. Which one was that? Singapore, was that? Yeah, Singapore, where the drivers were allowed to get some exemption from the weight limit of the car by wearing like these ice vests, basically, or these cooling vests. Yes. So some drivers chose to do it, some drivers didn't. So basically, if a race is declared a hot race now, they can do that if they choose to. So progress.
Yeah, it was pretty barbaric stuff.
It still is.
No surprise that Alain Prost would dominate in those sorts of conditions, because he was very much
with his cool head.
Yeah, cool-headed, like very calculated driver. Like was basically known for working out precisely what he needed and what points he needed in order to accumulate to win titles. Like he wasn't the fanciest or most flamboyant driver, but he was extremely effective.
He was the yin to Senna's yang, basically.
Yeah, it's a good way of describing it.
They were the opposites, but complement each other as they should have complemented each other's teammates, except for the fact they bloody hated each other.
Well,
other than that,
yeah, they had an insane rivalry, but then they ended up getting quite close, didn't they? I think towards the end of Senna's life.
Well, yeah, famously, Alan Prost's last ever race, I think Senna won it, and then invited Prost. Prost finished on the podium. I think he was third, but he invited Prost up to the top step and held his hand up because Prost was world champion, retired as world champion, and Senna celebrated with him on the top step of the podium.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's always slightly different when you're not rivals anymore.
Yeah, and you're driving for different teams as well by that point, and
the Williams and
Ferrari.
McLaren.
Was it? Was he still at McLaren at that point?
Prost was Williams. Senna took Prost's seat once Prost retired at Williams.
Ah, sorry.
Sadly.
I was getting his career trajectory muddled up.
Prost did go to Ferrari, but then he ended up at Williams, where he won his final title.
Right.
Again, tangents.
Yes. I was just going to say, in Rio, I don't know if you were planning on moving on from Rio, but that is where Nelson Piquet won in 83 and 86 as well. Another Brazilian to pick up a couple of home Grand Prix.
Also worth mentioning Nelson Piquet with relation to Rio, because the track is now named after him, I believe.
Ah, I didn't know that. There you go.
Piquet's a Rio resident. He's from Rio, just like Senna, of course, is from Sao Paulo.
Yeah.
So I believe it's now called the Nelson Piquet circuit. Apologies if I'm wrong. There is definitely a Nelson Piquet circuit in Rio. I assume it's this one.
It must be.
Yeah.
And until someone tells us otherwise, we'll work on that basis. I was a bit premature there and got ahead of myself. I am sure,
not like
you're going to make a reference to the 1988 race.
I am,
because it was quite notable for some reason.
It was quite notable. It was notable because it was, well, first of all, it was Ayrton Senna's first race for McLaren. Senna he'd come into the sport with Tolman. Well, I'll come on to Senna. Let's not get ahead of ourselves there, talking about Senna's past. But 1988 particularly was notable. It was his first race for McLaren. He qualified on pole, but his car failed him basically during the parade lap, and he had to start from the spare car, which meant he was starting from the pit lane, which effectively meant he was starting last on the grid because you have to wait for the other cars to start, and then you trundle out the pit lane and you join last. So race over, you'd have thought. But this is Ayrton Senna, and not only Ayrton Senna, this is Ayrton Senna in one of the best cars in Formula One history in that McLaren.
Yeah.
So he charged through the field, and by lap 20 laps, he was in second place.
Which is overtaking a car a lap, nearly.
More than that at the time, because there'll be at least 24, probably 26 starters, I think it was at that point.
Oh, really?
You used to have like 40 cars entering, or 35 cars at least entering every Grand Prix. They'd have to pre-qualify, and then it'd be limited to 26 on the grid.
Ah, I didn't realise there was 26
Very
on the
different
grid.
times.
Yeah, that is.
Might have been reduced as time went on, but yeah.
Even more astonishing.
Yeah. I mean, some of the ones at the back would have been absolute child's play for him to overtake.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, so he was behind Prost, obviously, at this point, and both drivers pitted. But as Senna finished his pit stop, he got black flagged and disqualified, unfortunately, because he basically switched to the spare car after the green flag was waved. So you're not allowed to do that. You can only do it before the race starts. This is back in the days where there was a spare car. There's not anymore.
Back in the days where they enforced the rules properly.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. It was a technical infringement. He fell on the wrong side of it and he got disqualified. Not the last time he got disqualified from a race, but at least this one was legitimate, potentially.
Well, that's like what the 1990...
Japan 1989 sure as hell wasn't.
Yeah, which is why Brazil 1990, I think, was such an unpopular win from Prost.
Yeah.
Because it was, as you just mentioned, in the immediate aftermath of a very controversial race, or incident, rather.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Is there anything else to say on the 88 race? Because I want to throw a bone to someone before we go back to Interlagos.
Well, I mean, the only other thing I can really say is, although Prost won, and obviously Senna didn't take any points from that, Senna won 7 out of the next 10 races anyway, and ended up world champion that season, his first title. Although it should be noted, in defence of Alain Prost, had it been the current point system, or pretty much any modern point system, Prost would have won. But they used to eliminate, you used to only take like your 12 best results, or something like that from the season. A number of 11 maybe best results. So it would eliminate, basically taking into account reliability. So if you had to retire 5 times, but you won the rest of the races, whereas someone else finished second all the time and just eked you on points as a result, that might not add up, but you know what I mean? It would basically say, well, you were unlucky, so you win.
But it also screws consistency, which is what Prost was famous for.
Which is what Prost was famous for. Senna got a lot more wins that season, but Prost was always second. Whereas Senna was sometimes a bit more inclined to do mad stuff. Spinning or being mad or crashing into someone or pushing the car too hard or whatever. Yeah. But ultimately, Senna's success made the officials in Sao Paulo redouble their efforts to modernise Interlagos. So $50 million was spent, smoothing and shortening the track to make pretty much the configuration it's in today. It's remained like that pretty much ever since, a few little tweaks, but it is, in my opinion, and I think if I think objectively, because I think I love Silverstone, but I think Interlagos is better for racing. I don't think there's a track like Interlagos for producing racing. Silverstone is very good. It's one of those two.
Silverstone's very good, but I think Interlagos produces better races on a consistent basis.
I think so. You do get very occasionally you get a dud at Silverstone, albeit there's usually some drama there because you can overtake. Ultimately, the reason these two tracks are so good is because they're old-fashioned tracks with character, and you can overtake,
and they're fast.
Pretty much, and they're fast, and that's pretty much all we're asking for.
Yeah.
Don't like street circuits much.
They strike the right balance as well between sort of like high-speed corners, slow-speed corners, and then just general lap speed. Because, for example, Monza is very fast, but in the modern car, it's like everyone just gets in a DRS train. So, you can't overtake, or you can't overtake very often. I was just going to throw a bone, now that we are going back to Interlagos, to the greatest moustache in Formula One history, and just mention that Nigel Mansell in his Ferrari.
Yes.
he won the last.
I thought you were saying
he won the last race in Rio.
I was about to get offended because I thought you were going to say anyone other than Nigel Mansell. Thank you for saying that. Carry on. My heart is settled again.
Just that he won the Brazilian Grand Prix in 1989, the last race in Rio in his Ferrari, with his and obviously while sporting his beautiful moustache.
What a guy.
Mansell, a bit of a legend, a bit of an icon, I would say.
Him and Damon Hill actually slightly similar, really alien career paths compared to modern drivers. Like Damon Hill was 30 when he first got in a Formula One car. I think Mansell was relatively young. I mean, Mansell won his one and only title when he was 41, 42. It's incredible. Obviously, he missed out very narrowly a few times before. In fact, he was incredibly unlucky in a couple of seasons. But you compare that to today, where drivers nowadays they're done by 21. If they've come into the sport at 20 and not got the results they want, they get 2 seasons at most, and they're done.
Yeah.
Bye bye. Enjoy Formula E.
Yeah, or IndyCar.
Yeah, or endurance racing, whatever you want. Take your flavour. And don't get me wrong, these are still very high levels of racing, but Formula One now is brutal.
Yeah.
When would you ever get a driver who's gone through another series, like won IndyCar a couple of times, coming into Formula One in his late 20s? I mean, there's rumours about teams doing it. In fact, with the Cadillac team coming in next year, there was rumours of Colton Herta or the likes potentially making that move, but no, they've just gone for Perez and Bottas.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough. Can't blame that driver lineup, but still.
Bottas. I feel like Perez is just,
I'd have gone for Ricciardo.
Yeah. That would have been a dream lineup, Bottas and Ricciardo.
They'd immediately be everyone's second favourite team, immediately, if they'd done that.
Exactly. So that's, we don't influence these things, unfortunately.
No.
Where were we? We were going back to Interlagos. We've already mentioned the Prost one in 1990.
Yeah.
It was remiss of us to not acknowledge the fact that it was actually also Prost's 40th career victory, which at the point was the most by anyone. It was also his last Brazilian Grand Prix victory, as you already mentioned, giving him his 6th in total. Senna was actually leading that race, and I think he crashed into Satoru Nakajima in a Tyrrell.
The Senna's record prior to 1991 and the Brazilian Grand Prix is astonishing in terms of almost anything that can happen to a driver to not win a race. He did at some point. He had mechanical breakdowns. He got disqualified. He crashed. Anything you can do to not finally get yourself on the top step.
I think
He managed to do.
I think he did what Verstappen did with Ocon at Brazil when he was like lapping a back marker and he crashed into him.
You hate to see it.
And he ended up coming third. And obviously, just to put a bit more flesh on the bones, the Brazilian fans were quite unhappy with Alain Prost because they perceived that the FIA had basically gifted Prost the title over Senna after they crashed in Japan and Senna was disqualified.
Which they had.
Yeah.
To be fair. I mean, I don't want to go into that in too much detail, but basically, yeah, that's what happened. There was a Frenchman in charge of the whole thing, a French driver who was benefiting from it, a rule that wasn't in the rule book that was suddenly applied, saying that because he got a bit of help from the marshals, he didn't rejoin the track properly or something, he had to be disqualified from the whole race, which is ludicrous. Reminds me a bit of Belgium 2008, but we'll come to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've already set the scene really for Ayrton Senna and 91 and 93 and 94 and so
94 was slightly different.
Yeah. But go on, like, I mean, did you want to talk any more about Ayrton?
I feel like we'll get the chance. I feel like we need to do sort of whole bio episodes. I don't want to spend the whole episode talking about Ayrton Senna. I think there's a lot of really good resources, a lot of podcasts as well who have done deep dives on him. I'll go through his life quickly. I mean, he was born to a wealthy family, as I say, in Sao Paulo in 1960. His father saw a lot of potential in him and encouraged him to go into racing. He famously made a go-kart for him out of a lawnmower when he was about 4 years old, and it was all onwards and upwards from there. He was racing people twice his age at karting and beating them when he was like 10, 11 years old. He got very good at karting. Eventually, he got to the World Karting Championships in his late teens, came second twice in that in 1979 and 1980. So, he didn't always win, but it was largely after that he did always win, because he then moved up through sort of junior Formula 4 type ranks, a couple of levels of that, where he just wiped the floor with anyone before he moved into Formula 3. And Formula 3 is when he got his first real rival. And you might know who this rival was, because he's someone who is very beloved to British Formula 1 fans.
Martin Brundle.
Martin Brundle, indeed. Racing in Formula 3. In fact, Senna quoted Brundle as being his hardest ever opponent later in life. Senna had won the first half of the race of the season, basically, and Brundle came roaring back into it and just was winning every race in the second half and enforced a title decider. There were some rumours going around that Brundle had been given like next year's specs or something because he was a British driver in a British series, and maybe they wanted to keep it interesting, bloody blah, whatever it might be. All that matters is went down to that last race. It was a bit of a damn squib in the end. Senna won the title, and both those two drivers ended up getting drives in Formula 1 the following season. 1984, Senna got a drive, despite being courted a little bit by McLaren and a couple of other teams. He ended up with a drive at Tolman, which was a mid to lower level team. I mean, a team good enough to qualify every race and give him at least half a chance if it started raining, as it famously did. And Martin Brundle had actually a better drive in the end at... I'm straining my brain here to remember who he got given the drive at, but they ended up getting disqualified from the whole season. Tyrrell, I think it was. He ended up at Tyrrell, and he actually got some points that season, but then they all got taken off him because of a technical infringement. Tyrrell got disqualified from the whole season, so interesting. But yeah, obviously Senna ended up driving for Tolman in Formula 1. See episode 8 Monaco Grand Prix episode for his greatest moment in a Tolman, where he, bear in mind, this is like doing it in a Haas or whatever nowadays, or an Alpine, who's the worst team this year, in damp conditions, charged through the field and was charging down the race leader, Alain Prost, before the rivalry had even taken off, when the race was stopped due to the weather, just as Senna was about to overtake him. In fact, Senna did overtake him on the lap afterwards, but obviously that didn't count. It finished by them. I think he just did it to make a point. But yeah, questionable timing, some questionable links as well going on between the engine supplier and Jackie Ickx, who was the lead steward or whatever it was on the day. So, episode 8 if you want to know the full story.
Yeah.
So he got a reputation as being a brilliant driver in the rain. He moved to Lotus in 1985, had 3 seasons at Lotus, which included an genuinely incredible debut when at Estoril in Portugal. Absolute downpour. And he took the checkered flag in a Lotus, which again, we're talking top 5 teams maybe, but outsiders for a win. He took the win by over a minute in pouring rain, which is incredible. In his second season in Formula One, he won six races with Lotus between 85 and 87, and then joined McLaren. And as we say, that was his first race, that Brazilian Grand Prix 1988 with McLaren. So I feel we're caught up now.
Yeah.
So we can now
3 world titles,
take it forward.
Then to Williams, and then unfortunately to San Marino, and there ends the story of Ayrton Senna. But not the legacy, and not the legend.
No. Far from the legacy and the legend. I mean, obviously, we'll go 1991. As we mentioned, he went race after race at Rio, and then even at Interlagos in 1990, where he had chances to win his home Grand Prix, but he never managed it. 1991, he won his third title that year, but most meaningfully, I think, in the season. It was quite early in the season. It was one of those early races at Interlagos, his home circuit. Up to then, it only brought him heartbreak. Engine failures, crashes, cruel luck, literally had driven him to tears in the cockpit. And this time, he was cursed again because he was winning. He was in a fairly comfortable position, and his gearbox failed on him, leaving him with only 6th gear. It took sheer willpower. I mean, it's hard to describe how different his driving style had to be to carry that weight through, and how close he came to stalling the car, and how much effort he was having to put into turning that car into corners and everything else, and how much force of will it required to do it. But he kept the car alive. He kept it going, kept his arms locked, kept charged all the way to the line, and then he screamed as he crossed the line, like famously, just screamed with joy and pain and exhaustion.
He was so knackered that they had to drag him out of his car, didn't they? The mechanics had to lift him out.
And they handed him the trophy on the top step of the podium, and he could barely smile, and he could barely lift the trophy, even though it was probably the proudest moment of his entire life. It's one of those brilliant stories of Formula One where it's like, yes, a man has been this cursed, but this time he was like, no fate, I will not let you win this time.
It's a bit like,
I love it.
It's not as extreme, it's a bit like Charles Leclerc in Monaco, and like all the bad luck he had, and those stories are just nice, aren't they? And
I can count on one hand how many times I've sort of punched the ceiling pretty much from joy at a Formula One race in the past few years. Obviously, Lewis at Silverstone's a given, but I mean, Charles Leclerc, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Loved it.
It's just really cool, and like you say, like they are sprinkled throughout the history of Formula One. That's the sort of thing that lures you back, because there's a lot not to like about this sport.
So much,
but it does have a unique romance to it, and it's actually, ironically, I'm probably going to argue against myself in terms of the controversy, because I generally speaking hate the controversy and the politics of it, but it does make those victories, when you achieve them on the back of, if you like, the disappointment and the frustration, where maybe that politics intervenes, maybe there's a questionable decision here or there, or maybe there's just a good slice of bad luck. So when it all then pays off, it is that little bit sweeter, even as a fan. So I can only imagine rather, how it must feel as a driver, or a team member, a mechanic, or a team principal, or whoever, to win in those circumstances. So yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're probably going to talk about a race later, 2021, which is so that was probably the last race that I watched as a non-cynical Formula One fan. As what happened at the end of the 2021 season. So I've said this before with Formula One. COVID sucks. It sucked for everyone.
It did.
Having Sky Sports with sport on TV helped a lot. NFL and Formula One particularly did that for me. 2020 was a good season, fun season of Formula One. George Russell getting that one-off drive for Mercedes, for example, at Sakir.
Yeah.
A couple of other bits and pieces which were fantastic. 2021 was an incredible season. It's a season like I've never seen in my life watching this sport. Think about the last 2 or 3 races of that season, and it just makes my heart, break. Basically.
Yeah.
But that Brazil race, so I might as well talk about it now, because Lewis Hamilton
needed to win the final 4 races to win the title,
and he, for reasons that you can debate, and it's a technical infringement, he had a couple of millimeters too wide a gap on his rear wing. One of those situations where you've just got to accept the judgment. There's nothing else you can do about it, even though in your heart you feel there's something dodgy about this. But he was disqualified from qualifying, starting back of the grid. Now it was a sprint race weekend, so he then nailed the sprint race and finished 5th in the sprint race from the back of the grid. But he then got a 5-pace grid penalty because he had to change his engine. So he starts 10th in the Grand Prix.
It was the other way around, wasn't it? Didn't he start from the back in the race? And he took
no, he started back in the sprint, and then you took your sprint positions as there wasn't a second qualifying then for the race. You took your sprint positions as your start positions for the race. Then you got a 5-place grid penalty. So
that was
10th
it.
for the race.
Sorry. Yes, you are right. They had that weird rule where, you start where you finish. Yeah.
Yeah, but I've never seen someone charge for a field and be so convinced they were going to win until he hit the elbows of Max, and Max obviously not getting a penalty for running him off the road. It is what it is. It didn't matter in the end. Did it matter in the end?
He got past them and then he won, and then there was more drama in Saudi Arabia, and then everybody knows what happened in Abu Dhabi. But yeah, incredible stuff, really. That's like you say, that's one of the more recent examples of Interlagos chucking up a beauty. But a couple of mentions in dispatches before we get on to maybe our favourites. Fernando.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many.
Fernando Alonso won both his 2005 and 2006 world titles in Brazil with Renault, who also won the 2006 Constructors there. And another nice one is Jensen winning his championship for Brawn after starting 14th and finishing 5th.
Yeah.
To secure his only title.
Yeah, absolutely astonishing season that was.
Yeah, the Brawn one.
The most unpredictable thing. I love Jensen Button.
Yeah.
Always one of my favourite drivers. I mean, it took him 113 races to win his first Grand Prix. I think that was a record at the time. Has since been smashed quite merrily. I imagine Nico Hülkenberg now has it. But, I mean, to then go out and fluke himself into it, basically being out of a job, and then suddenly end up at a team who's that dominant, incredible.
Yeah,
love it.
Very fortunate. All thanks to Ross Brawn.
Yeah, who then became Mercedes, of course. Brawn.
Yeah, and that worked out okay. What was I going to say? Before we get onto the really romantic stuff and like the glory races, let's start at the bottom and work our way back to the peak of the mountain. And I say the bottom, I'm doing him a huge disservice, but Ruben Barrichello has had some bad luck at home.
He has. One of my favourite drivers.
Yeah, like an absolute servant to the sport.
Fundamentally, clearly a nice bloke. And
a very good teammate.
The ultimate number 2. I don't think there's been anyone who can compare.
Yeah.
Bottas is the next best, looking back through the years, but
that's true.
He just incredible. Like a number 2 who will back up your lead driver. He will do the team orders when needs be. But if your lead driver's not available, he will go out and win races.
Yeah.
That's exactly what you want.
Yeah, and everybody wanted. I don't think he ever won in Brazil, but he got very close, and it's a bit of a tragedy. He never really won there because couldn't have. It would have been a very just jewel in the crown of Ruben Barrichello's Formula One career.
Yeah,
but in 1999 he was leading for a while, and then fate intervened, and his car failed, and Hakkinen won. And then
was he in the Stewart then?
99. Wasn't he with? Ooh.
I don't think he was Ferrari, because 99 was Eddie Irvine at Ferrari.
Oh, great question. Let's have a look.
Because I know he had a few banging races for Stewart back in the day, which got him his race. Yeah, he came third in qualifying in the Stewart. Yeah,
Jordan Stewart Ferrari.
Engine retirement. Yeah,
and then in 2000, just after he joined Ferrari, he was running second behind his teammate, who was all right at driving as well. A guy called Michael Schumacher.
He had his moments.
Who obviously went on to win, and unfortunately Rubens retired with hydraulic failure again, and so he never got to stand on the top step of his home Grand Prix,
which is a shame. Just a very consistent performer with every team he's been at. And as I mentioned, he was a Williams driver as well, and I'm a sucker for anyone who's ever been a Williams driver, so there you go.
Yeah, well, indeed. So, that's rather depressing. Should we talk about some stuff that's not?
Go on.
2003 is pretty romantic, if we want to swing to the other end of the pendulum.
I mean, 2003 is mad, I think. I completely remember this race. What would it have been, about 15? Depends how early in the season it was.
Yeah,
15 in this one. It was chaotic. It was
chaotic
crazy.
And unusual is what
huge crashes.
Yeah, yes. Oh my God, Alonso's crash in this race. Like YouTube that. It's absolutely insane. And then Alonso hits the tyre of another car, doesn't he? Yeah. Who's already had a huge shunt as well. I mean, there was loads of rain, as is the way when Formula One races become chaotic and unusual.
And as is the way often in Brazil.
Yeah, and it caused like a whole heap of problems with tyre selection because obviously Brazil's also quite warm. And so you're going sort of between intermediates, wets, and even, very occasionally, if the conditions are perfect, back to dries, depending on how interchangeable conditions are. And it caught loads of people out. Minardi were like, they qualified really high because they were the only team that sort of took a punt on like major rainfall.
I love that.
And so
I love it when stuff like that happens.
Yeah. The only problem is that when the race started, they both just crashed out. So, so they put themselves in a strong position, but they couldn't make hay whilst the sun shined. Ironically, whilst the sun was not shining. But yeah, the treacherous track conditions were just causing loads of people to spin out. I think that included Schumacher, which is a rare event because he was obviously firstly the
master in the rain
and reigning world champ. I think that actually ended a run of races for Schumacher where he had finished every race from 2001 through to this race in Brazil in 2003. It's like a 2 or 3 year run of finishing every single race he entered.
I mean, it sounds likely.
Yeah.
He won most of them as well.
Very Schumacher. Yeah, and then there was so many changes with the lead, I think at different points in the race, like Raikkonen led, David Coulthard led, and then all of a sudden there was like that massive crash we were just talking about, which led to a red flag, and absolute confusion reigned. Because Fisichella was...
As it often does, yeah.
Yeah, Fisichella was leading the race at the time of the red flag, having just overtaken Raikkonen. But Raikkonen was declared the winner because under the racing rules at the time, the rule was that the race result was to be taken from the running order of 2 laps prior to the race being stopped. And then that decision was overturned in the FIA Court of Appeal in Paris after new evidence came to light which proved that Fisichella had crossed the finish line in the lead, I think for the second time before Alonso's accident. So he had just got across the finish line for the second time. So he had technically 2 laps earlier would have been the leader. So therefore he was the winner. And that's how it was declared.
Crazy. It was his first ever Formula One win. I mean, he ended up with 3, Fisichella, but yeah.
That crash, like, oh my God, we should probably put the link to that crash in the notes or something. Absolutely mental crash.
Yeah. I mean, I remember it so clearly. I remember the confusion as well. There's a handful of races which stand out because they're so unusual through the years. I mean, Canada 2011 being one of them. That's when Jenson Button won that last corner. Just because they so much rain effect, so many stoppages and starts and everything else, and that one just stands out. But yeah, it's what Brazil does. Throws up these bangers. It's
what Brazil does. Which leads us on to the best finish to a race or season ever for at least 1 year. in 2007.
Well, I mean, James Hunt might disagree, but it certainly was up there with the best.
What are you talking about? James Hunt's one title when it was chucking it down in Japan.
Yeah, but and no one was quite sure where he'd come.
Yeah. I mean, that was good, to be fair, but that was also a race in which Lauda had retired because he was unhappy about the racing conditions, right? So
Indeed. Maybe I'm being too romantic about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good one. It's a good one, and there's a reason there's a film made about it. But
2007.
It was the first 3-way title fight in the final race of the season since 1986, which is when Prost beat Mansell and Nelson Piquet. And it was between Hamilton on 107 points, Alonso, his teammate, on 103 points, and Raikkonen on 100 points. Hamilton being in his first ever season, his rookie season, leading the championship into the final race is quite insane.
Unprecedented.
And would have won the title had he not crashed out in China, the race before, the penultimate race of the season. In fact, I think his lead would have been nearly insurmountable if he had won there. I could be wrong.
It would have been all... I think he was heading for a podium, so it might have been insurmountable, yeah. Yeah,
it would have been very difficult for someone to overhaul him, if not impossible. Anyway, the race itself. Lewis qualified second, ahead of Alonso, who was in fourth. That was Lewis's 12th front row start of the season, which also set a record for the most front rows in a debut season.
Incredible.
Raikkonen had qualified in between them in third, and in the other Ferrari was Felipe Massa in his home Grand Prix, who was on pole position. So yeah, Massa in first, Lewis in second, Raikkonen third, Alonso fourth. So Massa just sort of getting in the way of a title fight, and obviously playing a role for Kimi, presumably. Off the line, bad start for Lewis. Off the line, Raikkonen went past him. So it was Massa, Raikkonen, Hamilton, Alonso. And then by the third corner of the opening lap, Alonso had also gone past Hamilton. There was a bit of a back and forth. Lewis trying to take back the position, but he locked up and went wide, trying to take Alonso back. He rejoined the race in 8th, so a bit of a costly error, but not terminal. And so at that point, you've got Massa, then followed by Raikkonen, followed by Alonso in 3rd, Hamilton down in 8th. And then that's when Lady Luck intervened for Lewis, because he managed to get back up to 6th, which would have been not quite enough, I don't think, but he would have been right in contention to take the title with that sort of position, because this was back in the day where the point scoring wasn't heavily weighted in favour of the race winner.
No, it's 10-8, 6-5, 4-3-1.
That's it. So Lewis got back up to 6th, but then he had a gearbox problem, basically went all the way to the back, and was doing a very good job of recovering and coming through the field. I think he managed to get all the way back up to 7th, Massa leading. However, at the second set of pit stops, Raikkonen overcut Massa, coming out in 1st, meaning Hamilton needed 5th to get the title. He couldn't do it. Kimi holds on for the race win and the championship. So they thought. So this is where it all starts to get controversial. After the race, the results were thrown into doubt because there was an inquiry into the cars of the BMW Saubers and the Williams, and race stewards were basically investigating whether or not there were irregularities with their fuel, because I think you have to have a certain amount of fuel left in the tank and so on and so forth. It all gets very technical, doesn't it? I don't fully understand everything.
Doesn't feel like something that needs a huge investigation. Feels like something that needs a accurate measurement system, but
anyhow,
carry on.
The stewards decided not to penalise the teams based on a lack of conclusive evidence, which is interesting because it's not a position that they necessarily adopted when the tables would later be turned. If similar technical infringements labelled sort of pointed at Lewis, but nonetheless, we're not biased here, although we are a little bit.
We have our moments.
The McLaren team appealed against that ruling, and that appeal was eventually rejected by the FIA not too long later. But the relevance of it is, had the FIA accepted the appeal, although it would have been unprecedented, the title would have been handed to Lewis, because the 3 cars that finished 4th, 5th and 6th were the BMWs of Robert Kubica and Nick Heidfeld and the Williams of Nico Rosberg. And that would have promoted Lewis to 4th, giving him an additional 4 points. And Raikkonen, having won the title by 1 point, would have then missed out. Lewis would have won by 3 points. Kimi won, of course, his only title. He was 7 points down going into the final race. 3rd place in the championship, the outsider, and to his credit, and you can never take it away from him. And everybody loves Kimi because he's a bit of an icon. There he is.
Everyone does love Kimi.
2007 goes his way, and that was incredible. And there would be redemption. There would be redemption.
It was incredible. I feel like we skipped past Kimi's greatest Brazilian Grand Prix moment, though, because that came in 2006, if you recall, Ben. That's when Martin Brundle's grid walk, he went up to Kimi Raikkonen, asked him why he just missed the presentation with Pele, and Kimi politely replied, I was taking a shit. A fine moment of television.
Live on ITV.
Michael Schumacher's last ever race, that was? Yeah, what a race.
Temporarily his last ever race.
Oh, sorry, temporarily. I do apologise. Last ever race for Ferrari, his first retirement. And if you compress your brain enough so you don't remember the 3 years of Mercedes, it's a great send-off.
Right.
He wasn't bad with Mercedes, just didn't win.
No, and he was doing a job for them.
He's a legend in either case.
He is.
So, 2008.
2008. Who's taken the lead here? This might be the best finish to a Formula One race of all time.
I think it is. I was going to say, I don't remember going through that many emotions in, 38 seconds. The number I keep quoting.
I genuinely think, mate, that this is what what F1, what the FIA, what Michael Massey was trying to replicate when they fixed the closing stages of the 2021 final race. This is what they wanted.
Yeah.
But the difference is this wasn't manufactured.
you can't manufacture a finish like this.
Yeah.
It happened because of Interlagos. It happened because of changing weather conditions and a really bold gamble by Toyota, and
which nearly paid off.
Timing just being enough. It nearly. Well, it did. I mean, it gained him a place.
It did actually gain him a place. Yeah.
If the race had ended after 70 laps, Massa would be champion. If it ended after half a lap earlier, Massa would have been champion. 38 seconds earlier, but it's incredible. Anyway, so to set it up.
Yes.
So
Please
going
do.
into the final race of the season, 2008 had been, shall we say, a tumultuous season. At the point before this race, Hamilton was leading. He was on 94 points again for the second year in a row, and Massa was on 87 points. So strong position for Lewis, but no means in the bag, especially at Interlagos where everything can happen. Again, 10 points for a win at this point.
7-point cushion, isn't it?
Yes. Basically, Lewis had to come fifth. If Lewis came fifth or better, he'd win the title. If Massa won and Lewis came sixth, Massa would win on countback because that would give Massa one additional win to Lewis. Yeah. So Lewis was in his second F1 season, obviously, having just missed out in his rookie season, as mentioned. Massa was in his sixth F1 season. He'd had one season as a test driver for Ferrari as well in that time. His third season for Ferrari as a driver.
The other little bit of context here, I think, I'm sorry if I'm butting in and getting ahead of you, but Massa was bang in form coming into this last race. So he was on fire. Best he's ever driven by far this season. He was incredible. He was.
Levels he struggled to replicate, unfortunately, for the rest of his career for various reasons. But he'd won the same number of races at this point as Lewis, but he'd been let down big time by errors, some his own, some his team's errors, most notably during the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix, where in the chaos after Nelson Piquet Jr. deliberately crashed his car, he drove off with the fuel hose still attached to his car. His team had they had a complicated system. Instead of traffic lights, instead of lollipops, they had traffic lights, blah, blah, blah. The same thing had happened to Kimi Räikkönen, I think about 3 or 4 races before, I think the European Grand Prix, a few races before, the same thing had happened to Kimi Räikkönen. So it was a known problem with Ferrari. Obviously a bit of a chaotic pit stop after the crash in the safety car, and that relegated Massa down from running first to running dead last, and then he got a drive-through penalty as well on the back of that. Just a bit of a kick in the nuts, and ended up coming way outside the points, which we'll come to later. We'll come to after this, as still having ongoing relevance to this day.
Yeah. I mean, I guess to simplify it, in the first 10 races, Lewis had won 4 and Massa had won 3. But then in the last 8 races, Massa had won 3 and Lewis had won 1. But importantly, in the penultimate race of the season, ironically in China, where Lewis had slid off into the gravel just a year earlier.
Redemption,
he won, making it 4-3, 3-2. And as you say, tied, but Massa needing the win on the final race. And as I mentioned, did they all start, or did you want to say more?
I was going to mention that ludicrous Belgian Grand Prix again, just so you don't forget it. I forgot to mention when I said that Lewis overtook Kimi off the track. He had to bail out and go off the track, so he gave Kimi the place back. But then he overtook him at the next corner, and the powers that be deemed that he didn't give enough to him, like he'd still gained an advantage by doing that, which is fair. And the options available to them included a 10-second penalty. They gave him a 25-second penalty, which was exactly enough to take him from first to third and give Massa the win.
I mean, this is the
Niki Lauda.
Yeah, go on. Say what Nicky said.
Nicky said he didn't understand the decision, and he said, "It's unbelievable. The best driver in yesterday's race makes no mistakes and only gets 6 points." I'm genuinely still mad about it to this day.
The thing I was going to say when you were talking about that, and the reason I was chomping at the bit to interrupt you, which is very selfish.
It's fine. You do it. It's fine. I understand.
Was just to say that, like, if you look at these things carefully, and in the cold light of day, when everyone's blood stopped pumping, and you're not in the immediate aftermath of something, it does stink a bit how often bad decisions are made against Lewis for things like that, compared to how other drivers, those of whom we will leave unnamed because it doesn't really matter who they are treated in similar circumstances. And that 25 seconds, that's some brazen stuff. Like that, and 2021 is just, we don't want you to win.
It was a slightly different rule book back then. Like it's not quite comparing apples and oranges, but it's not too far away. Yes, I mean I don't disagree with you.
It's weird though that the discretion is exercised so disproportionately when one driver seems to be on the receiving end of these things.
Look, in the last race, Lewis Hamilton got a 10-second penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. And in a race earlier in the season, a different driver, who we won't name, got a 10-second penalty for deliberately crashing into someone.
This is what I mean. But anyway, but it doesn't matter because this all has a rather glorious ending. So, but that's the scene, and I think that's the reason why people who are fans of Lewis Hamilton defend him so passionately and feel so strongly about his ability, because on certain occasions it does feel as though he's having to overcome more than just his competitors' abilities. Let's put it that way.
Yes, I would be inclined to agree. I don't think I think sometimes the decision-making process is in too few hands with too many biases. Anyway,
yes.
Moving on. So Massa was on pole. Jonna Trulli was second, and
love that.
Massa's Finnish teammate Kimi Räikkönen was in third. Lewis was in fourth ahead of his Finnish teammate Heikki Kovalainen. You got to have a Finnish teammate apparently.
Yeah.
So it was quite well poised.
Stay as you are, and Lewis wins.
Yeah, or even lose a place. Although he certainly wouldn't be losing a place to Heikki. So on race day, conditions were damp. Rain was expected. Potentially heavy rain or thunderstorms. The start was actually delayed after heavy rain, and pretty much everyone's sensible, which I think there was only one driver who decided to start on slicks, but everyone else was starting on inters. I should point out here as well, I don't want anyone nerdily telling me they weren't slicks at this time, because they weren't slicks at this time. They were lightly grooved tyres during this period, but for all intents and purposes, we're going to refer to them as slicks.
Sorry if we don't cover every single detail of the technical rule book at any given time.
Away.
Yeah. We're doing this in like an hour and a half. Cool your jets.
If we're lucky at this point. So yeah, Massa started well. Once they got going, he kept his lead. Top 5 was at first, but then there were some accidents. David Coulthard, in his last ever Formula 1 race, he crashed out. And Nelson Piquet Jr., accidentally this time crashing out, brought a safety car out. Alonso and Vettel had passed Kovalainen as well, which put Lewis under pressure. Not the best teamwork ever there, but there you go. And you get what you pay for.
And McLaren were it's probably worth noting, being very conservative because they knew
they were.
So
they had to come fifth.
Yeah, so they perhaps were making mistakes in that respect because they were arguably too conservative.
I mean, yes, very, very nearly, shall we say. So, in fact, the next line in my note is Hamilton was driving cautiously. So yeah. he did pass Fisichella, but he took a lot longer than he should have to pass a driver who is much quicker than. He was sitting comfortably where he needed to be for most of the race. So most of the race, it was a dry race. Massa was very comfortable out top. By lap 54, Massa had nearly a 10-second lead over Alonso in second. Hamilton was in fourth. Vettel was putting pressure on him in fifth, but it wasn't a huge amount of pressure because Hamilton could lose that place and still be winning the title. He just had to finish fifth or higher. But then on lap 63 out of 71, things changed. Can you guess what happened, this being Interlagos?
Well, did the weather play a role?
It might have done, yeah. It started to rain. Bit of a light rain at first, but it started gaining momentum. Got a bit heavier.
I like the way you asked that and I answered it as if I didn't know the answer and every minute detail of this. But yeah.
I mean, yeah, you take over whenever you want.
No. I'm basically reliving it in my mind as you speak.
I watched the last 6 laps on YouTube earlier to literally relive it, and it still gave me goosebumps. Honestly, it's incredible.
So the rain.
So, yeah, the rain. Teams started to pit for tyres, obviously, intermediate tyres, including both Hamilton and Vettel. Most of the front runners, except, crucially, Timo Glock.
Yes.
Timo Glock was running 7th. He fancied a gamble in his Toyota on slicks, staying on his slicks while the rain was relatively light, hoping that it would stay light and that would allow him to get to the finish, maybe keeping a higher position than 7th, which ultimately it did, but we'll come to that. So Glock rose to 4th, so Hamilton and Vettel were now 5th and 6th.
Yes.
So Hamilton still in the position he needed, but now he had a bit of pressure on him, because if he lost that place to Vettel,
and Massa
he'd be out of the...
still crucially first, surviving all of this chaos up front.
Yeah. Massa was able to pit comfortably. He was so far ahead, he was able to pit comfortably on lap 67, retain his lead, All the front runners now, except for Timo Glock, were on intermediate tyres. Lap 69. The heavens opened just a wee bit more. Rain fell more heavily, and for Lewis, disaster struck. So he was letting a back marker back past him at this point, where he got off the dry part of the track, onto the wet part, ran slightly wide, and Vettel, doing what Vettel does, he didn't become a 4-time world champion for nothing.
Yeah.
Snuck past him on the inside. And
Sniping.
all of a sudden...
Sniping.
All of a sudden, he had Vettel in front of him. He was in 6th place. The title, if he stayed where he was gone.
3 laps, was
And
it?
my heart was sinking at this point, as was anyone watching this. I was actually listening on the radio to this. I was driving in Sheffield at the time. Don't know why I wasn't in front of a TV, but there you are. So basically, Hamilton had a lap and a half to try and overtake Vettel, but Vettel held firm. So Massa crossed the line and took the checkered flag, and he was 38 seconds. It's the number I keep saying. He was 38 seconds ahead of the pair. In that 38 seconds, everything changed. So in the immortal words of Martin Brundle, Raikkonen's third, and is that Glock going slowly?
So good. And the thing that's so awesome about it is nobody realised Glock was going slowly and struggling.
No,
the entire focus was on Hamilton and Vettel. It showed Massa crossing the line, and then it just cut immediately to Hamilton and Vettel. There was no appreciation or interest in any other aspect of the race.
No, it was mentioned once Vettel got past him, Brundle being Brundle, obviously 3D chess constantly going on in his brain. He did say Hamilton's only chance now if he can't get past Vettel is if Glock on his tyres struggles in this rain. But then Glock was 15 seconds ahead, so they just forgot about him.
Yeah.
And then they've spotted him at this moment. And it was Timo Glock. He'd put slick tyres on him, similar to, if you remember Lando Norris in Russia in 2021, when he was caught out in the wrong tyres. You just completely lose the ability to get any traction whatsoever. It's like driving on ice. You're doing 360s for fun. All he could do was try and nurse his car home in as high a position as possible. And to his credit, Timo Glock finished 6th.
Yeah,
which is obviously one place higher than
he made a place. Yeah,
he was in.
I was just going to say there as well. Wasn't all the confusion added to by the fact that didn't McLaren radio Hamilton at the beginning of the final lap and told him to overtake Glock, and he didn't know what position he was in, and obviously he knew Vettel was ahead of him, and so he was just like, "What do you mean overtake Glock?"
Yeah,
because he couldn't see him.
Matt Bishop, there's the podcast that he does, which is excellent, and colossally, this is history, I think it's called. Fully recommend. He talks about how he was the McLaren PR director at the time, and there was a point where they realised it clocked the Glock was going to be overtakeable, and they were trying to tell Lewis, forget about Vettel, you just need to keep the car on the track and you will get past Glock, but trying to communicate that to someone in the moment. And Lewis had no idea what was going on, obviously, and then commentators had no idea what was going on until this moment happened. Seeing Glock, seeing them both slip past him, and seeing them, even then, the commentators are saying, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is going to be 5th. Yeah, and they didn't know until he crossed the line and got the classification through.
Yeah, that's it. They were waiting for it to come up, weren't they? And was it the very last corner, or was it the penultimate corner? I mean, the penultimate corner is
technically,
it's basically one sweeping curve, isn't it? But
I think, well, the one sweeping curve is technically 2 corners, so I think it's like the third to last. It was Jung Cao, I think the corner was.
Yeah, okay.
The left-hander, so that's maybe the 4th to last, but some of the corners are like questionably whether they should be corners. They're like double apexes, basically. Yeah. But yeah, it was basically the last major turn before you go into that sweeping left.
You've missed the best detail, but I'm sure you're coming to it. The sweet detail.
So, when Massa crossed the line first, celebrations began
Schadenfreude
in the Ferrari garage.
Deluxe.
So, obviously, Felipe Massa's dad was there. His family were there. The Ferrari team were obviously all celebrating. All they knew was Hamilton was sick. Everyone was in place. Hamilton probably wasn't going to get past Vettel. Hamilton was struggling with his tyres. Vettel seemed to have a lot more grip. They were celebrating like they'd won. And then the camera cuts to, obviously, after Hamilton crossed the line, the camera cuts to them realising, then the McLaren garage realised, it's not actually in the TV feed, but if you watch the full feed of what happens in there, the Ferrari mechanic tells, obviously, everyone's gutted. and then you just see I think it's probably him or someone, one of the mechanics come out of nowhere.
It's the guys breaking the news.
Yeah.
He's interrupting the celebrations, pulling like group hugs apart to tell them Lewis is fifth. And then that same man, Jack, what does he do?
He throws a headbutt against the wall, leaves a dent in the wall of the garage.
It's such a... I mean, I'm laughing.
A yard away from Felipe Massa's dad.
Yeah. And his agent and his brother, isn't it, I think?
Yeah.
And like, don't get me wrong, I'm not laughing at their expense in the... Like, that must have been absolutely galling. But it's such a pure outburst of emotion from the Ferrari mechanic. Like, you can feel his pain.
It's very Italian.
Yeah. It's absolutely incredible. And he just doesn't even flinch. And he leaves like a full-on head-shaped dent in like this wall in the Ferrari garage. And then it cuts to the McLaren garage and they're going...
Where all hell is breaking loose. So again, Matt Bishop describes this. He says he's never experienced anything like it, like that much outpouring of joy in such a concentrated environment, and then realizing he had a job to do because he had to sort the media and everything like that. It is incredible, and
apparently
it's sport concentrated.
To add to the Schadenfreude of any Lewis Hamilton and McLaren fans, apparently the Ferrari president Luca Di Montezemolo at the time, I think I pronounced that wrong, I'm sure, was reportedly so angry with the result that he destroyed the television he was watching the race on.
I mean, to be fair, I've nearly done that once in my life, and I don't have to tell you when it is. Doing a different Grand Prix.
Oh, yeah.
A few years afterwards.
Yeah. I think Timo Glock said he didn't even realise he'd been overtaken by Lewis until after the race.
No, I mean, there's these crazy conspiracy theories about Timo Glock.
Yeah.
The idea that he for some reason, whatever reason it is, because he liked Lewis, blah, 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 whatever it might be, he let Lewis through. It was literally, he was Lando Norris in rushing. He was caught out on the wrong tyres when the rain came heavy, and he just couldn't drive his car. It's all it was, and it's just sport coming together at this moment. Again, you roll that dice 100 times, you only roll that particular outcome once. It's incredible. There's a couple of things, actually. Well, no, there's one thing in particular that does need to be said about this, because one thing I will say absolutely, unequivocally, is so I really like Felipe Massa. I always liked Felipe Massa. Obviously, he then became a Williams driver, so inevitably I'm bound to like him then. But even before that, like I can begrudge Raikkonen winning in 2007 because I love Raikkonen. I could probably begrudge Massa winning. His behaviour in the immediate aftermath of losing that world title should be studied.
Yeah,
for how dignified, sporting and classy it was. Like standing on the podium, pumping his chest, holding back tears, but sort of standing up tall. He was perfect. His driving was perfect that day. He did absolutely nothing wrong. Did everything he could possibly do. And apparently afterwards, he marched into the media scrum after the podium. Obviously, they all had to wait for everyone to come from the podium, so they was just surrounding Lewis completely. He forced his way past probably really astonished journalists surrounding the new champion and made sure he shook Lewis's hand and congratulated him man to man. And that is how you do it, and other drivers could very well take note of that, because that is to be absolutely admired.
Classy stuff.
But
a humility which would be undermined in time.
But there is a but to this.
Yeah, go on. And maybe it was the very serious head injury he got when he got hit by the spring.
Maybe. I mean, so apparently, obviously, this has haunted him a lot, Massa. And again, this is Matt Bishop. Sorry for keeping quoting Matt Bishop. Please do listen to his podcast. It's fantastic. He sat next to Massa on a plane a few years later and described how he spoke to Massa about this incident. Massa said if he hadn't have won the race, he don't think he'd been able to cope with it. But as long as he knew that he'd done everything that he possibly could, he was okay with it. Which sort of stands up to a point, but then you've got this situation where he's going through these court proceedings now, which I understand why he feels the way he does, and he might even have a point that had Renault not cheated in Singapore, he could have been a world champion had it been a less chaotic pit stop situation, blah de blah. But his appeal, his legal, it just has no basis in reality. It doesn't stand up to the basic reading of the rules of the sport at the time, or even since.
And I know this is an unfair comparison because Lewis is a 7-time champ, but Lewis has had 2 titles taken away from him in circumstances where they could legitimately have been subject to legal challenge. And McLaren chose to do so in 2007, as previously discussed. And he's on record as having said, I wouldn't have wanted to win my first title like that. And he maintains that. And then obviously 2021, he'd have been well within his right. I mean, like, to the point where it's arguable that just should have been overruled, right? Like, it was that egregious, 2021, and he persuaded Mercedes not to challenge it, or was at least maybe persuaded is putting it too high. He certainly contributed to the decision not to challenge that legally. And so to have someone trying to take a title away from him, albeit for their first and only title, and in gut-wrenchingly heart-breaking circumstances as they were, is a bit cheap, like nearly 20 years after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, you can strip it down pretty easily to what's actually being claimed. I mean, Massa's saying that the FIA and the FOM knew about Renault's deliberate crash in Singapore before it became public in 2009, and that had they acted at the time, the race would have been voided. Basically, that means that no points for anyone. Massa wins the title instead of Hamilton because points don't get reallocated. It's a very convenient argument. The problem is there's no foundation for it at all in the 2008 FIA regulations or any precedent in Formula One history or anything in the World Motorsport Council bylaws or anything like that. The idea that a single team's cheating would lead to an entire Grand Prix being wiped from the record books is just unsupported by the rule book, by precedent.
Yeah,
the rules
get DQ'd, don't you? That's it at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's it. The rules give you options that can be taken. Those include the disqualification of the team or the driver. That could be from the race, that could be from the race and all subsequent races, or that can be from the race and all races that season. But in any one of those scenarios, if you then reallocate the points, Lewis ends up with more points than he had previously, and more relative to Massa as well. So if there was one of those scenarios that gave Massa the result, I'd maybe be pursuing it. But instead, we're going for this void option, which
it's the only way you manufacture a different outcome to this season. Yeah.
So the World Motorsport Council can decide that things like force majeure, timing failures, procedural breakdowns, stuff that affects everyone within a Grand Prix can lead to the race being voided. Basically, if they've cocked up the process so badly that the race is, well, null and void, basically, they can void it. But it's not one team deliberately crashing a car, not one team or driver cheating, because, I mean, that's happened before. That's happened many times in sport, like Tyrrell's illegal ballast. That was what I was talking about with Martin Brundle, his first season. They got disqualified for Spygate, McLaren, and Crashgate itself. They came to a decision on Crashgate. It was just a year later, and Renault got a suspended sentence for that. Briatore got banned, like got reduced on appeal. Pat Simmons got banned, it like got reduced on appeal. Punishments were given out for that. So Massa is both implying that A, this rule to void it exists, and B, that the punishments would somehow have been different than they actually were just a year later. And there's just no base. I imagine it's doomed to fail. I sort of hope it's doomed to fail. I just think I don't know. I don't know if maybe the F1 will sort of pay a bit of money to make it go away or something like that. But if it's just for money,
but if it's not doomed,
I don't know.
If it's not doomed,
it's just a shame.
If it's not doomed to fail, then there's no statute of limitations on it. Then how many other seasons are we going to have legal challenges for? Because if it wins, if it's successful, then why wouldn't Lewis reopen 2007 and 2021, and why wouldn't anybody else who's been screwed during the passage of time in various different seasons?
Damon Hill, 1994, and where else? The estate of Ayrton Senna in 1989, and etc. etc.
Yeah, exactly. So so on and so forth. Yeah, it's a bit smelly, but that's what Formula One does, isn't it? It does smelly well.
Yeah. It does, but I want to make one thing extremely clear before the end. Renault should have been punished worse than they were. Not that there should have been any punishment. There wasn't any punishment that could have existed that would have benefited Massa, but I'm amazed that it's still a win in Fernando Alonso's win column, and I'm amazed that Briatore is allowed back into Formula One.
I was going to say Briatore in particular. It's pretty, chop the head off the snake sort of thing. Yeah, I agree with that.
Rant over.
Yeah, rant over. And on an uplifting note, maybe to end us, unless you've got something like a quote or a yarn that you want to spin, let's just hope this weekend is exciting and dramatic and fueled with all of the romance that we've been waxing lyrical about, and absent the politics and the need for intervention from the powers that be in order to resolve outcomes of races. And we just have, a shit ton of rain and a lot of excitement.
And I hope the best driver wins without controversy because of their skill and talent. Whoever that might be, even if that's Max Verstappen, even if it's Oscar Piastri, even if it's Lando Norris, whoever it might be, as long as they do it from skill and merit.
Yeah.
It's all we want.
It will be exciting. Cool. Where are we hoping to go? I say that every week as though we're actually going there. What are we going to be discussing?
I mean, I'm hoping to go to any of these places.
Yeah, well, one day
you
will.
offer me tickets, I'll bite your head off for them.
Yeah. Well, so we've been to some of them in the past.
We have, of course.
And we will make our way back to others and we will try and get to the ones we haven't done. But what are we going to try and talk about next week?
Well, this is one I actually would like to go to, and this is one that it wasn't originally on our list, but then we were discussing the codes of football that we've covered so far, and there was one glaring omission to that, because next week is the Grey Cup, which is the Canadian Football League. Well, I imagine Canadian people will not like this description, but their version of the Super Bowl. So Canadian football is the Canadian version of American football. This is their version of the Super Bowl. It's the Grey Cup, and we're going to learn about Canadian football.
Awesome.
And then the week after, it's the Ashes.
Yeah, after it's you're going to be taking the lead on Canadian American football.
Am I?
Yes.
Noted.
For sure, mate. I mean, like, I can contribute to NFL, but you're really testing the boundaries of my sporting knowledge when it gets to Canadian American football.
I'm testing the boundaries of my own sporting knowledge here, Ben. I know the nuances and the difference in the rules. Other than that, I'm apologising in advance to our Canadian brothers. I'll do my best.
Well, to be fair, we will come prepared. We will do our research and we will do our very best. It's a
fun topic anyway.
It is a fun topic. If you want to watch Brazilian Grand Prix in the UK, it's Sky. I think ESPN Formula One has its own channel. Channel 4 here as well shows highlights. I don't know if I can do it justice elsewhere, so I might just say Google it like you do.
Cool.
Excellent. All right. Well, thanks, mate. That was a trip down memory lane that I enjoyed a lot. My spirits are uplifted.
I did too. It is my favourite race. I'm going to make sure I've got time to watch it and I'm going to enjoy it regardless of what happens. But, a surprise victory would be nice, particularly a surprise victory for a man wearing red. That would be very nice indeed.
Called Lewis Hamilton, who's got 7 world championships and over 100
I'd
race
take Charles, but yeah, why not?
No.
Or Williams.
Yeah.
Albon.
Oh, an Alex Albon win would be nice. Cool. Well, here's to hoping. See you next week, mate.
I will see you next week. Have a good week.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you again for lending us your ears. You may have noticed that's 2 episodes in a row released on a Thursday now. We're going to stick with that. It works nicely for a few reasons. If you enjoyed this episode today, then please leave a like, a follow, or write a comment. Anything you think we missed that you reckon we'd like to hear, let us know. Most importantly, please tell your friends about us. It really does make all the difference. Our theme tune is the excellent Oh Yeah by Harmony Productions. You can find us on Instagram and Blue Sky at The Sporting Almanac. Next up, Oh Canada. It's the Grey Cup to end the CFL season. Until then, whether you're the one throwing the party or the headbutt after the checkered flag, sport is nothing without the history that makes it. Goodbye.